we'll take a roll call to introduce board members and staff. Chris Paff.
Here.
Josh Ames.
Here.
Kate Nee. Planner. Amanda Wolf, who is our housing and land use planner. Jessica Cole, who is our recording secretary. Nora Loughnane, who is our director of community and economic development. And we've had a couple of representatives from Westwood Media Center. I'm not sure whether it's Charlotte or Alex that's with us, but Westwood Media Center is with us as well. Right. This meeting is recorded by Westwood Media Center and broadcast live on local cable television Comcast Channel 6 and Verizon Channel 42. Meetings are also live on the Westwood Media Center's YouTube channel. If you're interested in joining the meeting via Zoom, you can find the login directions in the planning board meeting notice that is posted to the calendar section of the town's webpage at https://www.townhall.westwood.ma.us/. We will begin the meeting with only the board members and staff unmuted and on video. As the chair recognizes individuals to speak, we will unmute them. Board members may choose to mute themselves when they are not speaking in order to minimize background noise. For applications, the chair will first invite the applicants to address the board and give a presentation summarizing what is being requested. Board members receive the application materials prior to the meeting and will have reviewed them. Board members may ask questions during and following the presentation. Staff and outside experts will provide comments to the board. If the issue includes a public hearing, the board will then proceed to the public comment portion of the public hearing and will restate the instructions. In this remote meeting format, residents and guests may participate in several ways. Attendees should raise their hand and wait to be unmuted and recognized to speak over the Zoom meeting application or from a telephone dial-up. We will be able to hear you but not see you. Additionally, comments may be submitted by email or regular mail prior to the meeting. When we come to that part of the meeting, I will remind everyone of the process. Following the public comment portion, the board will deliberate and make a decision or continue the hearing to a specific future date. All remote meetings require that votes be taken by roll call. When a motion and second has been made, the chair will ask if there is any further discussion before proceeding to a roll call vote and will then restate the results of the vote. All right, Elijah, do we have any changes to the agenda this evening?
No, we do not.
All right. So it looks like the first agenda item is 100 Station Drive, consideration of request for a one-year extension of special permit for modification of University Station Master Development Plan, MDB, granted by the Planning Board on April 12, 2022, affecting a portion of Development Area A on the Modified Master Development Plan involving property now known as 100 Station Drive. Do we have representatives from the applicant here?
I don't see any names from the ones that we know. It looks like most of these people are here for later projects.
Okay.
I'm happy to speak to this one.
Thank you.
So this is an application from the owners of the property that you granted a project development review for the Home 2 Hotel. And you also granted a special permit to modify the master development plan to show the development of the hotel. The project development review approval does not have a time span associated with it, but the special permit does. The special permit is valid for 2 years unless construction has begun, and they are still working out the financial details of that project, so they have not yet started construction. I met telephonically with the property owner and encouraged them to submit a letter requesting a one-year extension. They did that before the first term expired on April 12th. So if the board is willing, you can, for good cause, grant a one-year extension of the special permit. That would allow them to make use of the project development review approval they have to construct the hotel up until April 12th of 2025. And just for a little more explanation, the reason I would say that it is good cause is that they have been unable to construct the hotel for the dollar amount they anticipated that was estimated when it was approved in 2022. So you can recall how prices were changing at the time. We were in the middle of our inflation of building materials, and the estimate was provided prior to the start of that inflation. So the owners are still very interested in moving forward with this, but they are repackaging their financing to make it reasonable to get the project in.
Thank you. Any questions on this from my colleagues? I'm not seeing any hands raised. Any comments from additional staff? Any concerns? I'm not seeing any. And this is just a request. This is not a public hearing, correct?
It is not a public hearing, no.
All right. Then at this time, I would entertain a motion.
I move that the planning board grant a one-year extension of the University Station Master Development Plan MDP special permit approval, which was granted to 200 Station Owner LLC for the development of a 5-story, 75,000 square foot hotel building at 100 Station Drive on April 12th, 2022, so that the MDP special permit approval remains valid through April 12th, 2025.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, I will take a roll call vote. Chris?
Aye.
Josh?
Aye.
Kate?
Aye.
I vote aye as well. The motion carries. All right. Our next agenda item is 1054 High Street, continuation of a public hearing for consideration of a limited environmental impact and design review, EIDR, to construct an addition to a private school building with parking alterations at 1054 High Street, continued from March 12th, 2024. Right. And do we have members of the applicant's team with us? Looks like we do.
Yes, hello. Hi, my name is Tom Neal. We've met with the planning board a few times in the past. This is actually our third iteration, so we wanted to just kind of give an update on the site plan, landscape plan, and then some of the comments and sort of responses with the folks at Beta, the third-party consultant, their input on the site and how it's kind of evolved with respect to the design of the parking lot and water mitigation, let's call it, on site. Should I share my screen to just kind of put us all literally on the same page?
That would be great. Thank you.
Let's see where it is. Sure. So I will share the site plan to start. I also have, excuse me, the landscape plan, which, sorry, got a tickle in my throat. I posted the landscape plan kind of mid-afternoon today, so some folks may have seen it, others may not have. Really what it is it's an update to kind of match the site plan that we're seeing here with regards to landscape screening and other vegetation on site. Ultimately, it's a similar look and feel, but it just, the goal was to get it to match, again, what we're seeing here. So some of the adjustments from, I guess it's tricky to kind of say where we last were, but I'll relate it to the previous plan, which was submitted early in the month of April. Showed a third parking spot here. There were some concerns about kind of backup space and aisle width. So that spot has been relocated. There's now 2 spots in this area, one of which is handicapped with striping adjacent to the building. A zone to create kind of a walkway up against the building, leading up to a ramp to get into an entrance here at, let's call it the kind of side rear of the building. There's 3 parking spaces along this kind of front edge of the building along High Street, if you will. This really hasn't changed from the previous iterations that the board has seen. The space I mentioned earlier that's moved, it's now become a parallel space. So it's got a longer length to it. It's 21 feet. And that's kind of tucked in along the side of basically the back out aisle for this other row of parking spaces up along this length. So those are kind of really the biggest changes. There's other notes on the plan that roof leaders will be connected to essentially the collection basin for water runoff. And I think that captures the majority of the notes, at least at a high level, from the kind of last time I spoke with Elijah and Nora.
Thank you very much.
Sure.
I see you have some other members of your team. Before I start soliciting board comments, I just want to make sure, was there anyone else from your team that wanted to present anything? I don't want to cut anyone off.
If it's
Oh.
useful, I can switch quickly just so you can see the landscape plan if it helps as a visual. I mean, it's kind of nice to see a pop of color.
Yes, thank
So
you.
it might give a little
Also,
extra.
it looks like we have our fifth board member here. Phil has his hand raised in the attendees. So if we could promote him to panelist, I know he was interested in some of the parking last time we discussed this.
I'm Deb Howe, the landscape architect. I'm happy to speak about any of the planting if people have questions about it.
So thank you. I will, but I tend to let my colleagues go first and I go last. So, but I'm glad you're here. All right. And then at this time, I would ask if any board members have questions or comments.
Can you,
Hello, Phil.
sorry.
No worries.
Can you remind me at the handicap spot and those, the one on either side, is there a rail, a bollard or something there at the end of it? Or is it just the plantings?
Along
Curving,
which edge? Sorry.
Yeah, right there. That long, no, not that. Parallel to the plantings. Yeah. Is there anything there?
I believe
No,
there's a
there's just the row of trees at the property line. Row of evergreens.
Okay.
And the actual handicap space is the center
Right.
of those three spaces.
and I believe there's like a wheel stop or a curb stop.
That's
Yeah.
what I was just asking. I didn't. Is that
Yeah.
what that grayed out?
It is,
area?
yeah. I think there's
Okay.
a general note somewhere around here, but they're essentially shown at all of the
Okay.
parking spaces.
Good. Thanks for explaining that. And my
Sure.
second question is the ramp. Does that comply with ADA grade?
It does. So this is actually one of the edits that was most recently made. So basically what happened was there was an additional landing that you can kind of see here in this rectangle to make the turn around the building. And another basically leg of the ramp to take you from the, what is it, approximately 203 at grade up to a floor elevation of 206 plus minus almost 207.
Okay.
So that's what this essentially this extension was added. The ramp used to end at this line.
Okay. And now I see the slope delineated there. The 12, 1/12 pitch.
Yep, 1 to 12 for both of the
Okay.
ramp lengths, and then a flat landing here and a flat landing at the top where the stair also meets it.
And has Beta had a chance to see that ramp redrawn or?
Don't think they've seen it redrawn unless this was
No,
uploaded.
they haven't.
Okay.
Okay. I thought I saw a comment from them about the ramp.
Yeah, there was a comment when in its previous iteration. So that was what created this adjustment.
Okay. Those are my questions. Thank you.
Thanks, Chris. Any other board members have questions or comments? Kate.
Thanks, Ellen. I just wanted to be sure that there's enough, God, I can't think of the right word now. I had it. While Chris was talking, I had it. The setback, sorry, for the handicap space from the property line, that's an appropriate distance? And I'm looking to Elijah to confirm that for me.
Yeah, I believe there's over the 5 feet. There's more than the 5 foot setback
Perfect.
for those spaces.
Okay, great.
Yeah,
Thank
so
you.
I don't know if you can see it on here. There's 10.7, so 10.5-ish feet. I know it's kind of on the diagonal, but it's roughly parallel in this view.
Great. Thank you.
That helps.
And I just wanted to understand the walkway in the front of the building that goes around the ramp. Is that made of a different material? What's to get the pedestrians around the ramp to the stairs in the back. If they would go that way, or they could also go in that door just to the left, right? Was that the plan? If you're parking over there, you're going to go in the door to the left?
Correct. So yeah, essentially the walkway is a different material from the asphalt. I don't think it's been determined, but it'll be another hardscape material.
Okay. Yeah, my only concern is how tight it is for the pedestrian if they're going to walk around that ramp, which I love that the slope is correct. They'll be into oncoming traffic to get over to those other stairs. That was all. I care very much about the pedestrian, so that's what I was looking at.
Thank you, Kate. Any other board members with questions? I'm looking to see. I know Phil's on the road. If none of my colleagues have questions, then I will start with mine about a couple of the plants. First, I spent a lot of time reviewing the species because that's particular interest of mine, and I was very pleased to see many of your choices are ones that I get really excited about, especially the eastern red cedars. It's one of my favorite trees, and it's just such a hardy tree and so
Yes.
good for the ecosystem that it's I never am unhappy to see that on the list. There were 3 species that I wanted to talk about. The first one was the choice of river birch. From what I understand about river birch, it's a very rare tree in Massachusetts, and there is some debate about whether or not it truly is a Mass native or not. So I was wondering if you'd think about maybe, particularly since my big concern with a lot of the species here, aside from just the general desire to enhance our ecosystem here, is the proximity to the wetlands that this property is. And some of these are being proposed for the rain garden. The river birch is being proposed as part of the rain garden plantings. I think I'd feel better about, gray birches or yellow birches, because those are truly Massachusetts natives and have similar properties to the river birch as far as being able to do well in drier or wetter soil. What was the next one? The fragrant sumac. I did read your letter, and I actually spent some time talking with a colleague from the Conservation Commission who is also a landscape architect. So I know that she deals with species all the time. And the interesting thing about the fragrant sumac is we looked at 3 different sources. 2 of them say it's not native to Massachusetts, and 1 of them does. So again, it seems like there's some debate there about whether it truly is a native.
Yeah.
So that, again, I know it doesn't like wetlands, but there's always the chance for, I hate to use the word contamination because it seems so strong, but I'm very sensitive to the integrity of the lands around the Tobin School. So the 2 species that she suggested would be something that I'd be interested in you considering that would also, be very beneficial and pretty are the red chokeberry and the black chokeberry. Those are both definitely Massachusetts natives and apparently very good around parking lots. And sorry, go ahead.
I just want to ask about those because those tend to get taller, and the beauty of the fragrant sumac is it tops out at maybe 3 feet, which is useful around a parking lot where you need to be able to see out over the hood of your car and see what's happening, but get some protection. And the fragrant sumac can handle getting snow plowed on it if we ever get snow again.
Right.
So my concern is you can plant shrubs that get big, but you can't keep them small. There's an optimal size for every plant, and no matter how much you prune, you'll always get this reaction growth that wants to get the plant to as big as its rootstock gets. So it's just the parking lot restrictions for Westwood are really challenging to go with a size that will remain small enough and be resilient enough to deal with the maintenance needs and with the screening needs and the nativity.
Understood. I guess I'd be interested in if there's another option that you could propose that was for sure a Massachusetts native. I mean, I understand, and there are benefits to that stopping some of the runoff into the wetlands. But I would like to see if there's another choice. If not, I'm not totally opposed to the fragrant
Okay.
sumac. It seems like it is around, and that, it's not like it's a bad species. It's not going to take over the wetlands, but I guess I'd like to see if there's another option that would be possible, that even if it's, bushes that I know the optimum size, that like I have some winter berries at my house and they get tall, and I have my landscapers trim them back so that I can still see over the top of my drive.
Right.
Even if it requires some maintenance, if it's a true native, I think I'd personally feel better about that.
Okay.
And
And
but
what's
I
your-
understand the
just-
challenges.
Ellen, can I ask your stance on cultivars?
That was my next the next species I was going to ask you about. The Apollo, the
Yeah.
Ilex serrata / verticali cross.
It's just a lot of, that's just, yeah.
A lot of Latin in there. My issue with that is that cultivars in general, if they're native cultivars, it doesn't bother me, but that one is crossed with an Asian species. So I guess that one, I understand you need some male plants, but I
Yeah.
would prefer to see a cultivar that is at least United States native, not crossed with, something that's not even from this country. So that was the other
Okay.
species that I wanted to ask if you could propose an alternative.
Okay.
I had
We
no
could go
issues
with
at
all
all with
female.
yeah, I understand you wanted some pollination. I love the idea of pollination. I don't know if there's another male cultivar that would at least be all American, but just again, for ecosystem and habitat, I feel like the native animals would probably do better with species that are at least from this country rather than from overseas.
Yeah, no, that makes sense.
So if you could find it, I'm not against cultivars. I don't think our conservation commission is either. I can't speak for them, but they do have a preferred plant list that maybe we could get to you. Like they have guidelines about what they like to see in
Mhm.
wetlands buffers and that kind of thing. There might be something in there. I personally don't have anything. I'm not a no cultivar person, but I would prefer they were at least domestic. I really loved your species list, the renaturalization plan. There was not one in there that gave me any pause. I think overall you did a really stupendous job, and I was personally very happy to see it, because I can't tell you how many times I get a list that I'm told is all native and like 7 out of 10 are not. So I'm really thrilled that you proposed such a lovely list of species. So thank you for that. And my only other question, which I guess is more a town staff question, was there was some allusion to like the stormwater management and the runoff. Where are we, and we, I mean staff and Beta, at on that? Are we happy with where we're at on that, or are there still some concerns on that front?
Just looking at the plan, it does look like they have a proposed roof drain connection. So that was mentioned in a previous meeting, and so it looks like they have met that.
Excellent. All right, those were my only questions. So I get us at this point, I would ask if there's any other staff comments.
So I did talk to our conservation agent about the fragrant sumac. So the U.S. Department of Agriculture does consider it native to Massachusetts, but I also saw there were the other sources that didn't.
Right.
But overall, the conservation agent did feel that it was a good choice.
Yeah, I spoke with her too. Actually, I
Okay.
didn't realize I spoke with her about something else, but this came up and we discussed it as well. And it was one of those, like, it's not a bad choice, but if there is something that's better, it's worth at least exploring it. But I do understand, with all of our requirements for screening around parking lots, it can be a challenge. So it's not a deal breaker for me, but I would be interested to see if there's another choice that 3 different agencies about that take an interest in native plants all have a different opinion. So
That's right.
thank you.
That's right. Thanks.
Any other staff comments? Or I don't think we have anyone from Beta here tonight, but any other input as far as the peer review goes?
Yes, so I did, if the board is so inclined, I did propose some motions that would allow for the peer review to, the site plan to reflect any peer review comments from Beta, and subsequently have a landscape plan reflect any additional changes if needed.
Excellent. And correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe we have a standard condition that the final planting species plan goes to you for an administrative review, correct?
That's correct. It
Okay.
will go to me for a review.
Okay, great. So that if there are any proposed changes for the couple of species that I mentioned, which I would at least like to see the options, but yeah, okay, great. Then if my colleagues don't have any additional questions or comments at this time, I would entertain a motion. Oh, sorry.
This is a hearing.
It's a public hearing. So before we entertain a motion, I would open this up to public comment. There are a couple of ways members of the public can participate. You may either use the Q&A feature in the Zoom application, or you can raise your hand and we can promote you to panelists so that you may speak. Just please make sure you give us your full name and address for the record. I'll give that a minute. I'm not seeing any hands raised, nor am I seeing anything entered into the Q&A. All right. I'm not seeing any public participation, so now I would entertain a motion or several.
I move that the planning board grant the following waivers in association with the application for limited earth material movement, environmental impact and design review, EIDR, for the Tobin School at 1054 High Street, as described in the application therefore submitted to the planning board and filed in the office of the town clerk on September 13th, 2023. 1. Waiver from strict compliance with section 7.3.7.2 of the Westwood zoning bylaw requiring the submission of an exterior lighting plan. Number 2, waiver from strict compliance with section 7.3.7.3 of the Westwood zoning bylaw requiring the submission of a full traffic study to allow for acceptance of the submitted summary traffic analysis. Number 3, waiver from strict compliance with section 7.3.7.7 of the Westwood zoning bylaw requiring the submission of a presentation model.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion on the waivers? I'm seeing none. I will take a roll call vote. Phil, hi. Oh, you were muted. Sorry, we couldn't hear you.
Good. I'll vote aye.
Thank you. Chris.
Aye.
Kate.
Aye.
Josh.
Aye.
I vote aye as well. Motion carries. All right. So we voted on the waivers. Next, I would entertain a second motion.
I'd love to read this, but Elijah, could you make it just a little bit larger?
Yeah, you got it.
Thank you. People don't want to see my forehead as I try to read it. Thank you. I move that the planning board grant the limited earth material movement, environmental impact and design review, EIDR, for the Tobin School at 1054 High Street, as described in the application therefore submitted to the planning board and filed in the office of the town clerk on September 13th, 2023, subject to the following conditions. 1, except as modified by the conditions and findings hereof, the project shall comply with the project plans in all respects, and the applicants shall pursue completion of the project with reasonable diligence and continuity. 2, if the project or any condition imposed in this decision requires any other permit, license, or other approval from any board or commission or any agency of the town of Westwood or other regulatory agency of the Commonwealth or the federal, government, the applicant shall make an appropriate application for the same and shall obtain all required approvals prior to the start of any work. If any condition of such permit, license, or other approval from any other board, committee, or agency is inconsistent with this decision, the applicant shall make application to the planning board for an amendment of this decision, and the planning board shall consider such application in accordance with the requirements of Mass General Law, Chapter 40A, Section 9, and all applicable planning board rules and regulations. 3, any proposed alterations, modifications, deletions, or changes to the limited earth material movement, environmental impact and design review, EIDR, shall be requested in writing to the town planner and building commissioner prior to implementation. Proposed alterations which are considered de minimis by the building commissioner may be accepted as a note to the file. Proposed alterations which are considered minor by the building commissioner shall require the filing of an application of modification of said approval for review by the planning board at a publicly posted planning board meeting, proposed alterations which are determined to be major by the building commissioner or by the planning board shall be considered by the planning board as a formal amendment to the approval and will require a new public hearing before the planning board. 4. Prior to the issuance of the building permit, the applicant shall submit a fully revised set of site plans and updated operations and maintenance plan, O&M plan, addressing all remaining comments in the memorandum from Philip Paradis J. Jr., PEL Lead AP, CPSWQ of Beta Group, Inc., to the Westwood Planning Board dated December 18, 2023. Said fully revised set of site plans shall be reviewed by the town planner and approved if consistent with all of the above. 5. Prior to the issuance of a building permit, the applicant shall submit a final landscaping plan indicating all Massachusetts native plantings. Said final landscape plan shall be reviewed by the town planner and approved if consistent with the direction given by the planning board in the course of the public hearing. 6. There shall be no entering, exiting, parking of vehicles along the portion of the property abutting Lakeshore Drive. 7. All project-related construction activities shall comply with the timeframes set forth in the town's general bylaws, Chapter 292, for noise and construction, which allows such work Monday through Saturday between the hours of 7 a.m. and 7 p.m., and Sunday between the hours of 12 p.m. and 7 p.m. Thank you. 8. All trucks carrying earth material to or from 1054 High Street shall be required to access the property via High Street and Lakeshore Drive. However, no trucks associated with the project shall be permitted to travel on the portion of Lake Street Drive that is south of the southernmost lot line of the property, nor shall said trucks be permitted to travel on any other non-arterial road in Westwood. Said trucks shall be prohibited from entering or exiting the property between the hours of 7 a.m. and 9 a.m. and between the hours of 4 p.m. and 6 p.m. Monday through Friday. Thank you. 9. Any trucks delivering or removing materials shall be covered as to prevent said material from spilling onto the public roadway, and any spilled material shall be cleaned from Washington Street and any other roadways traveled in the transport of earth material to and from the site. 10. The existing pavement on High Street and Lakeshore Drive shall be protected from damage from loading and unloading of material and or equipment related to the proposed construction. 11. There shall be no substandard or hazardous fill material used with this project. Prior to the import of any earth material, the applicant shall submit certification to the town planner and building commissioner from the company providing said material, stating that the material does not contain any hazardous material. 12. All chemicals used during construction shall be located in a designated containment area and shall be located on an impervious surface designed to prevent the discharge of contaminated runoff into the soil or groundwater. 13. The applicant shall promptly repair any damage which the applicant or its agents cause to sidewalks, street pavement, signs, or other fixtures or features within the public right-of-way, after first obtaining permission from the Town Department of Public Works or Massachusetts Department of Public Works. Such repairs shall be performed to Town of Westwood standards. 14. All landscaping approved herein shall be installed at the earliest possible date, but only during the spring growing season running from April 15th to June 15th, or during the fall growing season running from September 15th through November 15th. Any plantings that do not survive shall be replaced in kind in perpetuity at the property owner's expense. 15. The applicant shall obtain approval by the town planner for any signage not included in this application and shall obtain all required signage permits from the building division prior to installation. 16. A copy of this decision and the project plans shall be kept on the project site at all times during construction. 17. This EIDR shall lapse if substantial use thereof or construction thereunder has not begun except for good cause within 2 years following the grant thereof. The planning board may extend such approval for good cause upon the written request of the applicant. In the case of this approval, the term substantial use thereof or construction thereunder shall mean the commencement and substantial continued progress of the approved activity.
Second.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, I'll take a roll call vote. Chris?
Aye.
Kate?
Aye.
Phil?
Aye.
Josh?
Aye.
I vote aye as well. The motion carries. Now we need a motion to close the public hearing.
I move that the planning board close the limited earth material movement, environmental impact and design review, AMM EIDR, public hearing for the proposed building expansion and associated off-street parking lot at 1054 High Street.
Second.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. I'll take a roll call vote. Kate,
Aye.
Josh,
Aye.
Phil,
Aye.
Chris?
Aye.
I vote aye as well. Motion carries. Hearing is closed. Thank you all very much. Good luck with your project.
Thank you.
So much.
Next on our agenda is 154 University Avenue. This is a public hearing, so I will read a portion of the notice. The Westwood Planning Board will hold a remote public hearing on Wednesday, April 24th, 2024 at 7 p.m. via Zoom regarding an application filed by Aaron, and I apologize if I get this wrong, Guazaloka, on behalf of Weston and Sampson for consideration of an environmental impact and design review, EIDR, pursuant to section 7.3 of the Westwood zoning bylaw for the purposes of constructing a roughly 2,831 square foot addition to the east street-facing side of the building to house a PFAS treatment system for the DWWD White Lodge Treatment Plant at 154 University Ave, Westwood, Mass. 02090, in accordance with PB-24-7. The property is in the Industrial I zoning district and within the University Avenue Mixed Use District, UAMUD, and Water Resource Protection Overlay District, WRPOD. Land affected, Assessor's Map 33, Lot 007, property owner, Dedham-Westwood Water District. All right, and with that, we open our public hearing. Looks like we have folks from the applicant, so welcome.
Good evening. I'm Aaron Guazaloka. You got it pretty close there.
Thank you.
I'm gonna let Allie, who's the project manager for this project, lead things off.
Hi, everybody. I'm Allie Goldberg, as Aaron said. Just wanted to give kind of high level and introduce the project team. So we have Aaron, who's the site civil designer. We have Brian McCusker, who's the lead architect. And then we have folks from Dedham-Westwood as well. So Blake and Steve are also with us. So overall high level is we're proposing approximately 2,800 square foot building addition to the existing water treatment plant located at 154 University Ave. The building addition will house 12-foot diameter PFAS treatment vessels that will treat PFAS in drinking water to non-detect levels. The PFAS treatment is designed to treat maximum flows at the water treatment plant, and it's an extremely important and critical piece of infrastructure project for the town as well as Dedham-Westwood. As the EPA regulations came out 2 weeks ago, this project will ensure that drinking water stays within compliance of the new federal regulations. And I will kind of turn it over to Aaron to kind of share our application and kind of open it up to comments and questions on the application provided for the project itself.
Thank you.
Okay, so this is, I figure we'll just give a quick run through on the plans. This is the project site located at 154 University Ave. It's currently the location of the White Lodge Water Treatment Plant. And what we're proposing is the 2,800 square foot treatment facility addition right here, this location. Very minimal site work on this. We have a couple walkways from the new building to tie into the existing site. Some small improvements to the security gate with the new motorized security gate system installed, and a water, basically a dry well, subsurface chamber system to handle and mitigate roof runoff from the proposed addition. It's a relatively small project. with a pretty tight scope here, so there's not a whole lot else going on here. Does anyone have any questions on the site layout? All right.
Looks like not so far.
Yeah, it is pretty straightforward. Brian, would you like to speak a little bit about the building
The
addition
building.
itself?
Yeah, of course. So currently the building is a typical brick with a CMU backer wall, and that's what we're proposing for the addition as well. Standard brick, just trying to match it so that it aligns. The building height is kind of dictated by the tanks. Like Ali said, they're 12 foot diameter by anywhere from 22 to 24 feet, depending on the exact tanks. So they're pretty large vessels. And that's actually why that coil-in door is there. Just in terms of maintenance, tanks do fail every now and then. So we like to have access to take them out without having to take the roof off. And one thing to note on this building is that it's mainly one story, but there is a kind of penthouse here. So we're staying below the penthouse, but we still are going above the majority of the floor level. So I know that on our application, you'll notice that as well. But yeah, you can see here better regarding the PFAS filter vessels. We do have to leave a little bit on top, so that kind of dictated the height as well, just for access and maintenance to clean out the carbon for the PFAS. So I think that is just a quick rundown on the building. So if anyone has any questions on that, I'm more than happy to answer them. No, thank you for your time.
Thanks, Brian.
Thank you. Were there other folks from your team that wanted to speak, or this is a very nice high level overview?
I think that was I think that wraps up our presentation.
Okay.
So we're open up to questions and comments.
Excellent. Thank you. I always like to ask, because I don't want to move on to the board, if there were other people that still had something to share. So thank you. All right, then I would open it up to board questions and comments at this time. Not seeing any hands go up. Elijah, correct me if I'm wrong, but we are going to be engaging a peer reviewer for that, right? But we need to vote to engage the peer reviewer, correct?
That's right. So the peer review, I had put out a RFQ, and we received one response from Thomas Houston of PSC. And so if the board is so inclined, I do have a motion later in the conversation to take up for said peer review.
Great, thank you. So we won't be hearing from a peer reviewer this evening. I had one quick question. I know this is very high level. I noticed that you do, on your landscaping plan, you say you're going to plant trees and you refer to see the plan. I didn't see a species list, and as you probably noticed in the last conversation, that's something that I am particularly interested in, but also something that we will want to see is what you're proposing to plant. So I appreciate being able to see where you want to put trees, but I definitely would like to know what species you're proposing as well.
We can
not today, but
we can prepare a list for our next meeting, and we can show I think our initial thought was just to replace in kind, because for the building addition, we are removing those 3 plants out front. But we will come prepared with a list for the next meeting.
Excellent. And just to reiterate, I'm not sure what's there. I haven't gone down and taken a look. We do require native species now, so what's there may not be native to Massachusetts, but so when you're considering what to replace, if they are and you want to replace in kind, sure, but if they're not, we'd appreciate if you would propose Massachusetts native species. Thank you.
Yep.
Awesome. All right, so at this time, any other staff comments?
Yes, so I just wanted to kind of go through. So I guess there was some back and forth on in terms of the status of this institution. We did get back a comment as of Thursday from our town council that this proposal is subject to Westwood zoning. However, there is still some conversation being had on that matter. Let's see, I want to go through other staff comments just to read through. The police department mentioned that they foresee no public safety impact from the proposed addition to the plan. Zoning had mentioned please file for a variance with the Zoning Board of Appeals for all forms of relief that are noted in the building commission's determination. And the building commissioner noted the proposed construction will require a variance to be granted by the Zoning Board of Appeals pursuant to section 1.4 of the Westwood zoning bylaw. Section 5.2.11 requires that a structure in the industrial zoning district, which this property is in, be set back at least 50 feet from the nearest street line. This parcel does not have frontage on any town right of way, and the closest street is University Ave, which is separated from this parcel by an approximately 8-foot wide section of the neighboring parcel, map 33, lot 008. The existing building is located 52.9 feet from the street line, while the proposed addition will be 12.6 feet from the line. Because this is a new nonconformity on a previously zoning compliant building, a variance is necessary. In addition to this planning board application, a separate application for variance must be filed with the Zoning Board of Appeals. The existing building complies with all other zoning bylaw requirements, as does the lot, save for the lack of frontage. Again, I wanted to mention that there is still some conversation on the status of the institution as we hear this case.
Thank you. That actually just sparked a question in my head. Given that this is with a water overlay protection district, would Dedham-Westwood need to go to conservation, or does that fall under planning board's purview because it's combined with the EIDR?
I will have to verify. I believe they do have to go for a land disturbance, but I have to double check on that.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, we've already submitted an application for administrative land disturbance permit.
Great, thank you. Yeah, I know it's in a water resource overlay, and the irony is you want to build something that will improve the quality of our water. So, but still, that came to mind, like the construction itself. There's stuff around that I was just thinking of. So, thank you. I see Mr. Richardson has his hand up.
Yes, I do. Can you hear me?
Yes.
All right. Yes, there is a difference of opinion between myself and town council relative to the status of the Dedham-Westwood Water District. The Dedham-Westwood Water District is by statute a body politic. It's a political subdivision of the Commonwealth, the same as counties are, and the same as the MBTA is, et cetera. And the case law that I cited, and I'll continue to discuss this with Pat Ahern, was that the district is exempt from zoning. This was not an intermunicipal agreement that created the Dedham-Westwood Water District between the towns of Dedham and Westwood. It was in fact a statute, a special statute, chapter 193 of 1985, which created the district, which states, I believe on about line 3 or 4, that it is a body politic, meaning it is a political subdivision of the Commonwealth, and therefore it would be exempt from municipal zoning laws, okay? Unless the district waived that. And I looked through that statute and I didn't see any waiver there. I mean, the district, really wants to comply insofar as possible with any kind of sound engineering requirements on the site. But this is not something where I believe that the town would have veto power over it. And they will be as cooperative as possible. The town's, goals and the district's goals coincide. They want to remove the PFAS from the water supply and improve everything. And anything that delays that or impedes that is, in our opinion, a bad thing. And anything that expedites that is a good thing. So that's basically our position. We'll have to, I'll have to discuss this further with town council, but my research on this was pretty emphatic that as a body politic and a political subdivision of the Commonwealth, it is not subject to municipal zoning unless the statute which created it waived that, and that did not occur. So that's all I have to say.
Thank you. Elijah, I'm sure you will keep us posted on how those conversations continue.
Yes, for
between
sure.
town council and just as a side note, as a board member, I know like we have had when the school department built a new school, they came to us and adhered to the zoning bylaws. And when the fire station is rebuilt, it will come to us and adhere to the zoning bylaws. So I would just say editorially, regardless of whether or not Dedham-Westwood Water has to comply with the zoning bylaws, I appreciate that you're going through the process because given that it is in a sensitive area, I understand the goal is I understand about the PFAS and it's a concern of mine too. But as I alluded to earlier, I would hate to see something, letting in order to move forward to cause a problem in the process. So I think the process is important to go through, regardless of whether or not it's something that you have to do based on what type of entity you are. So I appreciate that you're here and that you've submitted the applications and that you are engaging us in the process. So thank you. And yes, we will find out, we'll get further direction as this continues, as those conversations continue. Thank you. Elijah, Nora, Amanda, anything else from town staff?
Yeah, if the board is so inclined, I can share a motion for the peer review. And then also I would suggest that the board continue this to the May 14th planning board meeting in order for the review to be taking place.
Thank you. All right, so should we vote on the peer review prior to taking public comment, or should we take public comment first, as this is a public hearing?
Public comment first.
Okay, then before we move on to voting on our peer reviewer, I will open up the floor to public comment. If a member of the public would like to comment, please either raise your hand and we can promote you to panelist, or use the Q&A feature. Please make sure you include your full name and address. I'll give that a second. I am not seeing any hands raised, nor am I seeing anything in the Q&A. So that concludes public comment. So now I would entertain a motion on engaging the peer review.
Sorry, just 1 second. There you
No
go.
worries. Thank you.
I move that the planning board select Thomas C. Houston, AICP PE of Professional Services Corporation, PC, as the peer review engineer for the Environmental Impact Design Review EIDR for 154 Washington Street, University Avenue, as described in the application, therefore submitted to the planning board and filed in the office of the town clerk on March 26, 2024.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further conversation? Seeing none, I'll take a roll call. Kate?
Aye.
Josh?
Aye.
Chris?
Aye.
Phil?
Aye.
And I vote aye as well. Right. The motion carries. So now I would entertain a motion for continuance of this public hearing.
I move that the planning board continue the public hearing for the Environmental Impact Design Review EIDR for 154 University Avenue, as described in the application, therefore submitted to the planning board and filed in the office of the town clerk on March 26, 2024, to Tuesday, May 14th, 2024 at 7 p.m. via Zoom, where a Zoom link and associated call-in numbers will be provided on town's calendar on the homepage at https://www.townhall.westwood.ma.us/.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, I'll take a roll call. Josh?
Aye.
Chris?
Aye.
Kate?
Aye.
Phil?
Aye.
I vote aye as well. The motion carries. Thank you. Yes.
Sorry, Chair, just one thing. The proposed trees fall in a abutting property, as we had alluded to earlier. And so I just wanted to mention, continuing that portion as well, since it is tied to this application.
Oh, okay. I was going to ask about that actually, because I see that the 160 University Avenue as our next agenda item. I did notice it was separate. It is not a public hearing, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. So we should just continue this agenda item now, is what you're saying?
Yes, I would
Okay.
suggest it.
I move that the planning board continue the public meeting for the project development plan PDR approval for the installation of 3 street trees at 160 University Avenue to Tuesday, May 14th, 2024 at 7 p.m. via Zoom, where a Zoom link and associated call-in numbers will be provided on the town's calendar on the homepage at https://www.townhall.westwood.ma.us/.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, I'll take roll call. Josh?
Aye.
Kate?
Aye.
Phil?
Aye.
Chris?
Aye.
I vote aye as well. The motion carries. Thank you. We will see you on the 14th of May.
Very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. So that was our next agenda item. We've taken care of that. The next agenda item is Hedgerow Lane, reconsideration of recommendation for Hedgerow Lane street acceptance for May 2024 town meeting. All right. Nora, are you going to speak to this?
I am.
All right.
I'm sure you'll recall, back in March, you were asked to make a recommendation on the street acceptance article for Hedgerow Lane. Prior to you making that recommendation, Elijah did some research, determined the conditions of the planning board's definitive subdivision had been met, the roadway had been properly constructed, the landscaping had been completed, and you were encouraged to recommend in favor of the street acceptance. Shortly after that, we discovered that although all of those portions of the subdivision approval were met, the developer failed to complete a very important step. This was a subdivision that started back, I think the initial application was in late 2015. The first definitive subdivision approval was in the late 2016. The project was modified several times through 2019. Somewhere in there, a decision was made to discontinue and then for town meeting to abandon the old Hedgerow Lane in order for a new Hedgerow Lane to be constructed. And it was necessary because the two streets could not be close to each other, or subdivision regulations prevent that. So there needed to be an agreement with 3 homeowners who had properties off of the old hedgerow, number 6, number 18, 6, 18, and 21 hedgerow. So the developer worked with those homeowners and eventually came to an agreement for requesting the abandonment and eventually the discontinuance of the old hedgerow and dividing that old right-of-way up so that each of those property owners would obtain frontage on the new Hedgerow Lane that was to be built. So that was approved by the planning board as a modification to the definitive subdivision in 2019. The approved plan was endorsed and recorded at the registry, and our tax assessor cut the parcels out in accordance with that plan. So the three properties, 6, 18, and 21 Hedgerow, were all shown to have frontage on the new road. We have now discovered that despite recording that plan, despite signing the agreement to transfer the properties, the developer, David Spiegel, never actually did it. Now, there were reasons why it wasn't done. He did not bring it to our attention. His engineer did not bring it to our attention. We discovered this after you had already recommended acceptance of Hedgerow Lane as a public street. As important it is for the three property owners to have frontage on the new Hedgerow Lane, which they do not currently have. David Spiegel holds the title to the strips of land that would give them frontage. As important as that is, one of the strips of land that's involved in this is actually part of the road itself. So Hedgerow Lane does not exist in the layout that the planning board approved because the parcels have not been combined by deed as they were required to be. So I reached out to David and asked him to get in touch with me as soon as possible so we could address that. Got no response. 3 weeks later, I reached out again, got no response. Then I contacted his former attorney, Peter Zalka. Peter informed me that he had heard from the current attorney for the developer who was looking into the matter, and Peter gave him all of his records. And Peter gave me the impression that I would get a call from that new attorney to work out the details. That was over a week ago. Still have heard nothing. I've checked the registry every day, and there have been no transferred properties. No deeds for transferred properties have been recorded at the registry. So what I'm asking tonight is that the planning board consider revoking its previous recommendation in favor of the street acceptance. And in that place, recommend opposition to the street acceptance unless the developer completes all of the necessary land transfers, records the deeds associated with those transfers exactly as shown on the approved subdivision plan, and provides Elijah with the book and page of each deed, and does that before 2 p.m. on May 6th. If that's the case, then we could go to town meeting and we could explain to town meeting that the planning board, their conditions were met, that the subdivision road actually exists in the layout the way it was approved on the plan, that all the properties abutting that actually abut the new road and have the necessary street frontage. And in that case, there would be no reason not to recommend approval of or acceptance of Hedgerow Lane. But if those three conditions are not met, there is no Hedgerow Lane to recommend acceptance of. It is not in the layout that's shown. And we're hoping that this can be corrected because there are 10 property owners that are relying on Hedgerow Lane becoming a public street. They are currently paying for their own trash removal, their own snow removal, upkeep of the roadway, and they will have to continue doing that if it's not made a public street. In addition, 3 homeowners, 6, 18, and what used to be 21 is now 22 Hedgerow, do not have any frontage on any public road. They don't even have frontage on the private road that Hedgerow now is, that part of Hedgerow is. So it's a mess. Without these deeds being transferred and the land actually being in the configuration it's shown at the registry and shown on the assessor's map, all of the building permits that were pulled are invalid. All of the certificates of occupancy for the homes that these residents live in are invalid. So we have a serious situation that can easily be corrected with the proper transfer of the properties and recording of the deeds. But for reasons I don't understand, we're getting no response at all on this from the developer. So what I would like to do, if the planning board is willing to change its recommendation, I would like to inform all of the residents of Hedgerow of the planning board's new recommendation, inform them of the situation, the possible repercussions to their properties, and encourage each of them to contact the developer, David Spiegel, prior to town meeting to encourage this to be worked out.
Thank you. Yeah, that is a really difficult situation. Thanks for keeping on that. Would the select board need to revisit this as well, since they're the ones actually sponsoring the warrant article, or is this really just our recommendation?
So the select board chair is aware of this, and what will happen is if the deeds are not properly recorded and we don't receive the information by 2 p.m. on the 6th, we will go into town meeting and the chair of the select board will make a motion to remove the article from consideration. And that motion will require, I believe, a majority approval in order for it to be removed. And so that it will not even be voted on if that's the case. If for some reason the article does not, that we have to request a withdrawal of the article, and that request for withdrawal is not approved, it will go forward for a vote. And in that case, your recommendation opposed to the street acceptance would carry, and then voters would have a choice whether they want to nonetheless accept Hedgerow Lane, despite the fact that it doesn't have its layout as shown on the approved plan. So it's interestingly, whenever we have a subdivision, we require the plan to be recorded and we require the recording information for the plan. We don't require copies of the recording information for the individual deeds. I think our practice will change from here on out to make sure that we do.
Nora,
Yeah.
I have just a couple of questions. Is the deadline a little tight because of just getting that? It seems like it's really close to the last minute. And secondly, can we get a certification by the attorney and the developer that they've, as of the deadline, whatever it may be, that all steps have been taken? I think a signed certification under pains of penalties of perjury will put them on the line, and if they don't do it, then we'll have clarity.
Yeah, I think you could add that to the motion. Elijah could add that you require a certification, but beyond the certification, because to be blunt, I took the recording of the plan as a certification that they were following through on the rules. So I'm not sure I have complete faith in even a signed document. So I agree that should be added. But beyond that, I would like to see the book and page of recording so that I can actually go on to the registry site and confirm those book and page have been approved. 2 o'clock is the latest that I could actually get to the registry if I needed to check it and then get back to town meeting. That's how I chose that time. I'm very much interested in having this satisfactorily addressed and having Hedgerow Lane accepted. So I'd like to give all the time we possibly can. And so that's the latest deadline I think could work.
So that's why I was adding the attorney, because obviously you need somebody besides simply, the developer himself, because his word is not necessarily as solid or reliable as it could be.
Thank you, Phil. Sorry, Kate, yes.
Thank you. So Nora, I wanted to propose that we say 11 a.m. instead of 2, because it's just such a super tight day. It's still the same day, but I think you're allowed to have a cold or something, maybe be a little under the weather. And 11 o'clock would give me confidence that somebody would be able to make it and check.
That's fine with me. As I said, I was just trying to give them all the time I possibly could.
Nora, I had a question. If I remember it, so the 3 parcels that don't have frontage, one was torn down and built by the developer, right? But 2 were remaining from the original hedgerow, right?
That's correct. So all 3 of them were not part of the 10 lot subdivision. One of them was purchased from the prior owner by the developer. The house was torn down, it was redeveloped and sold. That's one of the lots that doesn't have frontage. Now, interestingly, in 2020, the developer recorded a plan without endorsement, without any approval from the town, recorded a plan showing that lot with the proposed new home and without the added land that was required by the approved modification of the subdivision. So I imagine that was done prior to the sale of that property.
And if I understand it right, I believe 18 hedgerow has since been leveled.
Yeah, so 18 Hedgerow has since been sold. I believe it was sold at foreclosure. The new property owner has demolished the home. That's a voluntary demolition, and they intend to reconstruct a home on that property.
But they can't until they have a valid building permit, which they can't get.
So that property, because it's a voluntary reconstruction, I think we have to have a ruling from our building commissioner. But if the property did not have street frontage through no fault of the owner, and there was an existing home that was voluntarily removed and would be replaced, I believe they would be able to replace it as long as they replaced it in the same footprint or in a manner that met all the setback requirements. So if the lot, when the owner purchased that lot, it had no frontage because the developer and the previous owner failed to follow through on the agreement to redivide and combine parcels, that's not the fault of the current owner. So I think I would leave that question up to the building commissioner to determine whether or not he would issue a building permit for the new home. But for many reasons, whether or not they get a building permit for a new home, it would be in everyone's best interest for all the properties to be transferred and combined with the lots to reach the configuration that's shown right there on the assessor's map. That configuration does not exist. Those homes do not have frontage. 6, 18, and 22. The front of their properties do not reach what's shown there as Hedgerow Lane. And in fact, a portion of Hedgerow Lane where you see the old configuration of the former Hedgerow Loop Road, that front part of it, that is separate from the layout of Hedgerow Lane because it's never been combined. So you couldn't actually get to Canton Street over the new Hedgerow Lane. It doesn't fully connect.
Any other board comments or questions? Any other input from staff? Yes, I would entertain a motion at this point. I appreciate the explanation and it's a really unfortunate situation and I hope it can be resolved, but I understand what we need to do. So thank you. I would entertain a motion at this time.
May I just ask, before you read that motion, Elijah, did you add another section to meet the concern that Phil expressed? Great, thank you.
Could you go back?
I would
to the
say
top?
on
sorry.
number 4, just for a moment, notarized document signed by proponent's attorney and the applicant or someone. So the two of them should certify.
And the developer.
And the developer. Because I'd like the certification from both. Thank you.
I think it's just from the proponent's attorney and the developer. You don't need said applicant in there. And then instead of provide a notarized, could you say the town planner is provided with a notarized document? And then just at the end of 3, if you could change the period to a semicolon and put the word and. Okay, thank you.
And drop the and on the previous one.
I think I had ands on each of them, but that's fine.
Oh, sorry.
That's fine, that's fine.
All right.
Okay, I move that the planning board rescind its March 26, 2024 recommendation to town meeting voters in favor of the proposed Hedgerow Lane street acceptance article and instead recommend that voters at the May 6, 2024 annual town meeting vote in opposition to the proposed Hedgerow Lane street acceptance article unless 1, all land transfers are properly completed as required pursuant to the Planning Board's March 14th, 2019 decision modifying the Westwood Estates definitive subdivision plan, and pursuant to the Westwood Board of Selectmen's October 15th, 2018 abandonment of Hedgerow Lane, and pursuant to the discontinuation of Hedgerow Lane that was confirmed by town meeting voters' approval of Article 13 at the May 6, 2019 annual town meeting, and pursuant to the town plan of land titled, quote, modification of Westwood Estates subdivision of land, Hedgerow Lane, Westwood, Massachusetts, unquote, which was prepared by Norwood Engineering on April 15th, 2019, and endorsed by members of the Westwood Planning Board on June 25th, 2019, and recorded in the Norfolk Registry of Deeds on page 98 in Plan Book 683 on July 31st, 2019. 2, all deeds are properly recorded at the Norfolk Registry of Deeds as necessary to effectuate the transfers of parcels A, B, remaining portion, C, D, E, F, G, and H to the record owners of parcels 202, 201, and 200, and to effectuate the combination of parcels A and B remaining portion with parcel 202, and to effectuate the combination of parcels C, D, E, and F with parcel 201, and to effectuate the combination of parcel G with parcel 200, and to effectuate the combination of parcel H with the Hedgerow Lane layout precisely as shown on the above reference plan. 3, the town planner is provided with the correct book and page number for each of the above referenced deeds on or before 11 a.m. on May 6, 2024. And 4, the town planner is provided with a notarized document signed by the proponent's attorney and the developer certifying the aforementioned deed transfers have taken place on or before 11 a.m. on May 6, 2024.
Second.
Thank you. I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, I'll take a roll call. Kate?
Aye.
Josh?
Aye.
Phil?
Aye.
Chris?
Aye.
I vote aye as well. Motion carries. Thank you. All right. The next agenda item we have is review of draft meeting minutes from April 2nd, 2023. Did everyone get a chance to look at the minutes? And did anyone have any comments, additions, changes they'd like to propose?
Nothing.
All right. I had nothing as well. Then I would entertain a motion to accept the meeting minutes from April 2nd, 2024, as written.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion on the minutes? Seeing none, I'll take a roll call. Kate?
Aye.
Josh?
Aye.
Chris?
Aye.
Phil?
Aye.
I vote aye as well. Motion carries. Thank you very much. Next agenda item is updates from agency and committee representatives. Has anyone been to any meetings or any events or organizational things that they would like to share?
The Pedestrian and Bicycle Advisory Committee actually meets this Thursday at 7:30 at the Champagne Meeting Room at Carby Street. Folks are more than welcome to join us there.
Thank you very much. Any other agency or committee updates? Excuse me. I will share. A lot of people have asked me about what's going on with the Canton Street Sidewalk Working Group. We have not had a full group meeting. There was supposed to be one scheduled for May 1st, but I believe they're going to push it out because there's a smaller group that's been working on some design review. Those are public meetings. I've been attending as a member of the public, not as a member of the smaller group. And they are reviewing some revised options. They're still trying to come up with something that they believe would be minimally impactful and feasible, that would be, potentially accepted to move forward. So that process is still ongoing. So the next larger group meeting, I'm not sure when that's going to be, but all those meetings are public, including the small group meetings. So I would say keep an eye on the town website for when the next dates for those are going to come up. And I encourage people to attend. Excuse me. Even the smaller group meetings, it's interesting to watch that process and offer your thoughts if you're interested. All right. Then if there are no other agency and committee reports, our next agenda item is general miscellaneous updates and administrative items. We have upcoming meetings for planning board of May 14th, 2024, and annual town meeting is May 6th, 2024. I would also like to mention that our election is coming up on April 30th. And I would like to encourage everybody in town to, all registered voters. I understand that none of the races are contested, but I would encourage people still to go out and vote and, make their voices heard. I think it's important, and please come to town meeting as well. Elijah, anything else about upcoming meetings?
Yes, speaking of elections, so the scheduled September 3rd meeting for the planning board falls on an election day. So we will need to reschedule that. The two dates that were thrown out were either Wednesday, September 4th, 2024, or Tuesday, September 10th, 2024. So just between the board, which date would be best?
So the 20th is the only date of the two that I can do. I have a work conflict for the other date.
The
He said the 4th and the 10th. The
gosh.
20th wasn't a choice.
Sorry.
Chris, what do you think?
I
When
wrote
should we meet?
20th in the subject, but I meant the 10th. Sorry.
Just throw a dart. Doesn't matter to me.
We're meeting at your house, Chris, so.
Good. I'll be gone.
We'll still meet at your house.
That's fine.
I could do either date if the 10th is better, because that way we would, in theory, have everybody here. That is fine by me.
Yeah, I prefer the 10th.
Yeah, that's same for me.
All right, the 10th it is.
Being my wedding anniversary, I definitely won't be here then.
Good
Well,
man.
that's-
You know that right
That's
off
a
the
good
top of your
reason.
head.
Absolutely.
All right. Was there anything else we needed to discuss in terms of miscellaneous updates? I inadvertently already addressed upcoming dates, which was our last agenda item, because I did mention town meeting and the election. It looks like we also have a board meeting on June 4th, 2024. So mark those dates on the calendar. Oh, was there anything else from either board members or staff for this evening?
If you could indulge me for just a minute.
I
just
was
had
going to say, do we speak first? Or...
Yeah, who goes?
I
We'll
think
let
we
Chris
speak. Let me
go first.
let me
I think
just.
Chris gets the swan song first.
All right.
No,
Well, then I'm not going to say
whatever.
anything.
Go ahead, Kate. If you have.
I just wanted to say it has been. I'm sorry because I don't know what you're going to say. So let me say this first. It has been such an honor to work with you on the planning board for this time. You bring a wealth of knowledge and a terrific, even temperament. And you've been a wonderful reminder for me to think about what we're actually trying to do here as a group instead of sometimes what I'm trying to do. So I really appreciate so much working with you. It's been an absolute pleasure. And we will meet at your house, I think. We're all going to show up there one of these times because you've done so much service for the town and I've enjoyed it. Thank you.
Please give us the menu ahead of time.
I don't know. That might be a quorum that you didn't intend. Thank you very much. That was really nice, Kate. I appreciate it. I just wanted to say I've served with 16 other board members in the 11 years, and my first board I sat on, my first meeting was the first meeting of University Station, and it truly was drinking water through a fire hose, trying to learn things about stormwater management. Never even heard that term before. So members of that board were very influencing on me, as Jack Wiggins, Steve Arafsky, Steve Olenoff, and Bruce Montgomery. Other people who I've worked with in the town that I truly appreciate: Janice Barba, John Malone, Jessica Cole, Amanda Wolf, Elijah. Thank you so much for straightening the ship that is our town. It's truly appreciated. Abby McCabe, It was a joy working with her. Tom McCusker was the town council when I first joined, and he's obviously been replaced with Pat Ahern. The Tom also I served with on the board, and certainly not last or least or anything Nora name. Just a wealth of information. I can't even say how valued Nora is to our town. It's like Wikipedia for institutional knowledge. Our town is so lucky to benefit from her employment and her living within the town. And the last group I want to thank is my wife, Deb, and my 3 sons, Drew, Mitch, and Jake. Thank you for putting up with missed Tuesday dinners. I'm going to miss all the work that I've done. I have learned from all of the board members I served with. I didn't always agree with all of them, but I learned about myself, and I learned from working in an environment where you have to get things done. Thank you to the Conservation Committee, zoning boards, and select boards I've had the pleasure of working with. Thanks to FinCom, which I also had the pleasure of serving on. I've enjoyed my time in Westwood. I served 6 years on the Little League board, 1 year on FinCom, and 11 years on this board. We moved to Westwood 30 years ago and raised 3 kids, all in public school. And I believe in giving back. And that's why I did this. I apologize, getting emotional, but I really enjoyed the work here, and I hope that my service has been seen by the town as a positive one. So thank you very much for putting up with me for 11 years and for the last 2.5, 3 minutes for this. So thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you, Chris.
Chris, it's been a
Thank you for your
pleasure to serve
service.
with you. Thank you so much for your service.
I've said this to you in private, Chris, but I do feel the need to say it publicly as well. You know, we've been doing this a long time, and we started with me on the other side of the table, and I have learned so much from you, from everybody. I really have enjoyed working on all sides of tables with everybody, but what I said to you earlier is true. I've learned a lot about, leadership this last year, chairing this board directly from being chaired by you for the first 2 years of my service. And you were an excellent example of how to lead this board and just how to lead in general. And I've learned a lot from you as well. And we historically, you and I have not always agreed. And I think I have learned the most from you when we haven't agreed. And that is really valuable. I'm a better board member and a better servant to our constituency and our town because of those interactions and those disagreements. You've really made me think, and you've made me push myself. I think all of us, you've made us all think, and we are a better board and a better town because of you. And I am personally very grateful. And I told you it's bittersweet that you're no longer going to serve. I totally understand why you didn't want to, but I'm also selfishly very sad that you will not be continuing on the board. But thank you deeply for everything you have done for the community.
And Chris, if you ever have any doubt of how much good your work on this board has done, just take a look around town anywhere, from University Station to the car dealerships on Route 1, to both Shell stations, to improvements to the Stagecoach Plaza, the new fire station, the new police station, the East Street Bridge. There are so many changes that we have gone through in Westwood over the last 11 years, and your involvement and steering the ship in the right direction was principal for those changes. So thank you for making Westwood all that it is.
Thanks.
I feel like we need a plaque or a trophy or cake. A cake.
I don't know
The
about a
statue
virtual
will go
plaque.
up next week.
A virtual plaque doesn't cut it.
Well, thank you.
Anyway, everyone has lives. We can adjourn. Thank you very much for indulging.
No,
Appreciate it.
that was a nice way, I think, to end what is your last full board meeting. You still have to come to town meeting.
I'll
and
be
sit-
there.
And sit with us, but yes, thank you for everything, and thank you to my colleagues for your work tonight, and town staff. My colleagues encompasses everybody on this screen right now. Thank you to everyone for your work tonight. And I guess unless anyone else has anything they'd like to add, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
So moved. Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion on adjournment? Seeing none, I will take a roll call vote. Kate,
Aye.
Josh,
Aye.
Phil,
Aye.
Chris,
Aye.
and I vote aye as well. Thank you all. Have a wonderful
Thank you.
rest
Thank you,
of your
Chris.
week.
Thanks,
Good night,
Chris.
everyone. See you at
Thanks,
town
Chris.
meeting.
Bye.
See you at town
Bye-bye.
meeting. Bye.
Thank you.